Recently, Tencent, the largest online game company in China, promoted a new policy regarding game addiction, stating that teenagers under 18 can only play online games for a maximum of 3 hours a week. This news has become as a shock to game fanatics and casual players all around the world. But why is Tencent proposing such an aggressive regulation? It turns out that game addiction has gradually become a serious issue for many households internationally. Parents interviewed for a recent news report mentioned their children playing digital games for 7 hours a day, skipping breakfast to buy games, as well as their children's grades being hugely and negatively impacted by the amount of time they spend on games. Researchers in the United States estimate that nearly 10% of all 150 million gamers in the country experience a certain level of compulsive addiction. Some of the games you play could be addictive, games such as Fortnite, League of Legends, and Call of Duty. These games seem to be magically attractive to gamers, luring them into playing longer and longer to the extent of disturbing their ordinary lifestyle. In order to figure out the root cause of game addiction, let us travel back in time and look at some earlier forms of games. Basketball fields, tennis courts, arcade machines. One interesting feature that nearly all games have in common is that there's always a special field or space with designated equipment, just like some sort of ritual. In the realm of modern digital games, when players hear the theme music in Monster Hunter or the bartender's voice pull up a chair by the hearth in Hearthstone,
It's good to see you again.
they know they have entered this special field. This peculiar phenomenon has baffled people for decades. In 1938, almost a century ago, Dutch historian Johann Huizinga proposed the theory of the magic circle. It is, as Huizinga states, a temporary world within the ordinary world, dedicated to the performance of an act apart. He thinks that there are dangers in the real world that will be a threat to games, thus granting the need for a magic circle to protect games from the outside. However, the secludedness of the magic circle might have some negative effects, such as confining players in a specific time and/or space and excluding others who do not belong. While later philosopher Roger Caillois argues that the danger is within the magic circle. However, we believe that the danger is the magic circle itself.
We would like to first introduce the idea of the machine zone from Dr. Natasha Dow Scholl. Dr. Scholl is an NYU professor who studies the intentionally designed mechanism for gambling that arouses addiction and allows humans to be absorbed into a zone, the machine zone. It's like being in the eye of a storm, is how I'd describe it. Your vision is clear on the machine in front of you, but the whole world is spinning around you, and you can't really hear anything. You aren't really there, you're with the machine, and that's all you're with. Even though in the book Addiction by Design, Dr. Scholl proposes the machine zone theory, she is mainly talking about the addictive features of slot machines in Las Vegas. In Dr. Scholl's lecture, Addiction by Design, From Slot Machines to Candy Crush, they make a connection between game addiction and the machine zone. Dr. Scholl specifically mentions Candy Crush, an addictive game that is primarily designed following gambling mechanisms. In other words, it is essentially a gambling game. These gambling games that let people fall into the machine zone have the circle to let them forget about the passing of time. The machine zone, the magic circle, there seems to be close similarities between Dr. Scholl's theory of the machine zone and Huizinga's magic circle. To some extent, the machine zone is just the dark side of the moon. It is a corrupted version of the magic circle. Some may argue that, based on its original definition, the magic circle confines people and it will not harm players in their real life, because the magic circle itself is a separation from reality. However, there are certain similarities between game addiction and substance abuse that make the magic circle, and therefore the machine zone, much more dangerous. This deserves our attention.
There is plenty of official documentation that has recognized game addiction as an issue. In Section 3 of the DSM-5, or the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, it goes by the name of Internet Gaming Disorder. Here it is called a disorder, or an illness that disrupts normal physical or mental functions. The American Psychiatric Association, the association in charge of writing the DSM, brings up relevant studies done on young males in regards to Internet gaming disorder. Most worryingly, the studies suggest that when these individuals are engrossed in Internet games, certain pathways in their brains are triggered in the same direct and intense way that a drug addict's brain is affected by a particular substance. Here, the APA is comparing Internet gaming disorder to an addictive disorder, specifically comparing it to substance abuse. The danger of drugs is that, as time passes, your body becomes accustomed to whatever you are feeding it, and as you build up a tolerance for a specific substance, soon you may need the drug just to feel normal. As your drug use increases, you may find that it's increasingly difficult to go without the drug. Attempts to stop drug use may cause intense cravings and make you feel physically ill. This may remind us of cases of game addiction, displaying the same set of symptoms, which often result in extreme actions, such as severe depression, murder, and even suicide. For example, in 2005, the BBC reported that a 28-year-old South Korean man died from heart failure caused by exhaustion. He played StarCraft for a 50-hour session with only a few breaks. Presumably, this was not the first time he participated in a long marathon campaign. Several Chinese and South Korean gamers have died in similar circumstances. In 2012, the United Daily News, via The Australian, reported an 18-year-old gamer in Taiwan died from a blood clot after playing Diablo 3 for 40 hours straight. We can see that the consequences of game addiction, just like those of substance abuse, are often detrimental to those who suffer from game addiction, and the machine zone itself contributes directly to game addiction. So, if the machine zone can be seen as a corrupted version of the magic circle, which has such negative impacts on people's lives, it is important for us to take a look at the magic circle itself in a critical way.
In this video, we have discussed several important topics. To recap, we introduced the concept of the magic circle, which is an enclosed space created by games separate from the real world. Next, we discussed the machine zone, which is the mechanism in gambling that places participants into a dangerous mindset separate from reality, causing the gambling addiction to occur. In addition to this, we illustrated how the machine zone can be applied to games. With this, we were able to point out the similarity between the concepts of the magic circle and the machine zone as spaces outside of reality that draw participants away from their real lives. Lastly, we focused on the existence and definition of game addiction, as well as the similarities it has with other types of addiction and the consequences that game addiction has had over the years. On top of that, we posited the idea that because the machine zone can cause dangerous gambling addictions, perhaps as they are very similar, the magic circle can cause dangerous consequences as well. This consequence, we would argue, is a game addiction. Now that we have established a connection between the magic circle, the machine zone, and game addiction, it is safe to conclude that we should be cautious about the magic circle itself, because it provides a dangerously enclosed space outside of reality that can lead to game addiction issues. Thank you for watching.